Well, howdy folks, coming to you on this windy, snowy, Arctic freezing day, and we're going to continue on with these Christmas movies. Of course, it is -3 degrees outside. It is dangerously cold that no one should be out running around here, and this is good old Indiana weather. The good old winter is here, can't you feel it? But this time today, we're going to take a look at another film. Kevin McAllister is at it again, so, and also, same as the Wet Bandits, now called the Sticky Bandits, in Home Alone 2, Lost in New York. Yeah, I don't think I've ever talked about this one, I think, but this is a direct sequel to the major box office success of Home Alone. But this time, the film takes place a year later. The McAllisters are going on vacation to Florida. I believe they're going to Miami, and there's a bit of indifference of where they're going, and of course Kevin's not too happy. He's getting picked on again. And of course, things happen. But this time he wakes up with everybody after they sleep in, but he wakes up with everybody. He joins them at the airport. From then on out, he gets separated. While he heads off to New York, the family heads off to Miami. And of course, the Wet Bandits have escaped. Again, changing their names to the Sticky Bandits for whatever reason. They end up in New York as well. They don't really explain that very well, but I think the plan is that they are eventually going to rob some joint and steal money and leave the country. That's their whole goal, is that they want to leave the country and they can't be found or prosecuted or anything like that. But, of course, with Kevin McAllister ending up in New York, they encounter him, and of course, they want to also kind of seek revenge on what he did to them in the first movie, but that doesn't, of course, it doesn't happen. He leads them to not a high-rise hotel, but he leads them to an apartment, a townhouse in New York City, where supposedly the uncle who lives in Paris lives in, but the uncle is still in Paris, and the house is being renovated. And that's where Kevin, of course, sets up his booby traps. And we meet some new characters. We meet Mr. Duncan, who owns the toy store. We meet the staff of the Plaza Hotel, played by the concierge, played by Tim Curry, with the butler, played by Rob Schneider, and I forget who plays the one who actually takes the money, but yeah, he ends up staying at the Plaza Hotel, running into Donald Trump, as a matter of fact. And I think even the filmmakers have been asked about it after he became president, and what was he a jerk or whatever? And I don't remember what their comments were, but anyhow, yeah, the movie takes place exactly 1 year. We also meet I can't think of her character's name, but she's the pigeon lady. Basically, she is the old man Marley in this film, but she's a homeless lady who's living in Central Park, and she has all her these pigeons as her friends, and she ends up making friends with Kevin, realizing that, okay, she's not as scary as she looks. But the difference there is that Old Man Marley, the brother, pumped a little bit of fear into him and gave him like this bogus story that that he was this murderer, and the salt was actually the remains of the incinerated remains of the people he killed. Well, with the pigeon lady, it's just, okay, she's this lady with a big scarf on her, big hood and a cloak and a hat over her shoulders, and she's carrying all these pigeons, and she gives them seed, and yeah, and there's not too much. Mr. Duncan, as the man who owns the toy chest, Duncan's toy chest, gives Kevin this ornament that signifies two turtle doves, and it does have. The movie is a bit longer than the first one, but essentially it is the same movie remade, just taking place at different locations. Even though they did film in Chicago, most of it, some of the scenes that are supposed to be in New York were actually filmed in Chicago, where Chicago kind of doubled as New York. But a few scenes did not. Like, there's an iconic shot, a couple of iconic shots in the movie where Kevin is on the rooftop of one of the Twin Towers. Kind of chilling to see that, and knowing that 9 years later, that building would be reduced to rubble. The movie came out in 1992. Again, was heavily criticized for the cartoon violence. Personally, I watched this one more than I did the first one. Because Home Alone 2 was the only one I owned on video, and I pretty much watched it year-round, regardless of it being Christmas time or not. Now, Home Alone, I would rent more along the lines of just like at Christmas time. I did not own the video to that until much later when they came out with this. And of course, they have this now in the Ultra 4K format, but I just don't see the need to upgrade that. So yeah, Home Alone 2, Lost in New York. came out 2 years later, even though it takes place 1 year after. It came out Christmas of 1992. Actually, Thanksgiving of 1992. So usually Christmas movies come around November, so that way they actually have an audience to watch a Christmas movie, to get people in the mood for Christmas. So yeah, Home Alone 2, Lost in New York. Now that is where I stop with the Home Alone movies. I did see Home Alone 3 years and years ago when it first came out. But I know John Hughes wrote that one, and it was directed by the editor of Home Alone 1 and 2. Was it Raja Gosnell? I think that's how you pronounce his name. He was the editor on Home Alone 1 and 2, but he decided to take over the director's chair for Home Alone 3. And Home Alone 3, to me, was kind of the end of the series, but they made a couple of made-for-TV movies, and it just wasn't the same. And Disney Plus did one. It was, again, it was, I've heard nothing but horrendous things. And so if you're going to watch Home Alone and Home Alone 2, Not Lost in New York. These are the two best ones. And plus the slapstick comedy that occurs in each film. There's things that are the same, and there's things that are different. In Home Alone 2, there's a scene where Kevin is confronted by the hotel staff, and the concierge, played by Tim Curry, has found out that Kevin's father, Peter, has put a hold on the credit cards, because they know that Kevin's missing and Kevin has the wallet, but they put a hold on the credit cards to find out exactly where he's spending the money. And so when they go to confront him, because when the credit card information comes up stolen when it's entered into the computer, they go to confront him, and that's when that's the only time in the movie where they use the Angels with Filthy Souls video, but it's the supposed sequel, Angels with Filthier Souls. And it's a funny scene, but I can see the point where critics were saying that nobody would believe this, because when you play back sound on a TV set, regardless of what format it is, I don't care what kind of, how good your home theater systems are. When you hook a VCR up to the stereo, it still sounds like it comes out of electronics. It doesn't sound natural. So, but somehow these people were duped, and thinking that, the sound of a Tommy gun was an actual sound of a Tommy gun coming through a small little monaural speaker on a 1990s television set. It doesn't work, but it works for the scene, and it's funny to see Tim Curry along with several other people jump out into a hallway, hit the deck, and cover their heads, and and then just to see Kevin McAllister go down a flight of stairs and say, "Merry Christmas, you filthy animal, and a Happy New Year." Boom. But yeah, and pretty much you have the same thing happening to Marv and Harry, just at the uncle's house being renovated. And so I think at some point in time that Chris Columbus and John Hughes, when they came up with the sequel, I think they realized that, okay, we did all this stuff in the first movie, and so we had to make the booby traps a little bit more bigger and more painful. And one of the things I think was kind of smart in a comedic way is that he's not giving them necessarily the same exact thing, because there's a when Marv goes up a flight of stairs, he's checking to see that there's no ice on the steps. He's sliding his, like, hey, there's no ice, it's not going to be slippery. And Harry keeps tapping doorknobs so he doesn't burn his hand. But also at the same time, there's same jokes that happen. Like Marv still gets his head set on fire, and they still get knocked down a set of stairs, not with paint cans, but a huge chimney pipe that hits them both at the same time, going down a hole that's in the floor, and then Kevin cuts the ropes. And then again you have, and just like at the end of Home Alone 1, they end up climbing a rope of some sort. Instead of going out from the house to a tree house, they're climbing down from the top of the roof of this townhouse down. And then of course Kevin has that figured out. Well, he can't cut the rope. Well, what else can he do? Well, he can drench the rope in a flammable liquid and then set it on fire. And so that's what happened. He drenches the rope in kerosene, because that way it's a slow burn, and then ignites, goes up, they fall down, and there's a little bit of confrontation between the bandits and Kevin. And so before they get arrested again. So I just took you step by step right through this movie, and there's a lot more. It is basically the same movie redone, just with a little bit different gags, and you can tell that they did try to embellish on the success of the first one by making stuff a little bit bigger, like some of the booby traps and things of that nature. But I still enjoy both movies, and I stay away from 3, 4, 5, and how many of the sequels there are now. But like I said, I saw the third one when it came out, and I think that was in the late 90s. I'm thinking like 97, 98 when that came out. And it was, and how completely different it was. It was, yeah, that one was the last one written by John Hughes. But again, it was a different kid, different criminals. It was more like high-tech criminals implanting this computer chip, it's used for nuclear weapons or something like that, into a toy car, and the kid is at home with the chicken pox instead of the kid being abandoned like in this film. They knew they couldn't get by with that again. So the kid is left at home sick with the chicken pox, and it takes place around winter time, but it's not Christmas, and so I just think that kind of ruined the charm. It did have Scarlett Johansson in her first big movie role, but it was a small part. But anyhow, Home Alone and Home Alone 2. We already did Home Alone. We did Home Alone 2 tonight. And we're going to do something else tonight as well. I have not chosen the movie yet, so do stay tuned. You will see that pop up on the YouTube screen near you. So, from me to you, see you later.